What does it take to build 9, 10, and even 11 figure businesses? How do you overcome adversity after losing everything? What can you do during an economic crash to come out the other end a millionaire whilst everybody else is falling apart? And can you really use business to make a massive impact on the planet and make a lot of money at the same time? These are just some of the very many things I discussed with a business tycoon by the name of David Wolff. You don't want to miss this interview, so stay tuned as we discuss mindset and building business empires. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Minotaur's Maze, where my guest today is David Wolff, who is from Gainesville, Florida. Now, David has some phenomenal achievements as he has built several companies in the real estate and financial industries, which ended up being 9, 10, and even 11-figure businesses. He was the founder of Platinum Partners LLC, which is an umbrella corporation for 12 entities. He has been married for 21 years and has 5 children. And he has supported multiple causes, including feeding the hungry, battered women with children, and many environmental causes. In fact, his non-profit currently filters 80 billion gallons of water per year and grows over 2 million fish, crabs, and shrimp annually, which is all part of his mission to bring coastal waters back to life. David has since sold his company and has now started a new journey where he's going to be using all of his business experience to help other companies scale by cutting through the noise and distractions to get to the level of success that they desire. So firstly, David, thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Brilliant, no worries. So obviously I've given a quick rundown there, but in your words, can you just let everyone know who you are and a little bit about your background from where you started and where you are now?
Well, as you all know, my name is David Wolff. I grew up in the U.S. here. Middle class, and I had older parents. I'm kind of the baby of the family, so I got to learn from mistakes of some of my older siblings, which was a big advantage. But I know what it's like to be on food stamps, to have a church paying your rent so you're not homeless. I know what it's like to watch my parents start a business, have it grow, and then have it fail. I've kind of seen both sides of the story. So I think that did help me, make a decision in my life that I was going to maybe not accomplish big things, but I was going to try really hard to make sure that I didn't end up back in places that, I grew up in and didn't want to be. So.
Brilliant. Okay, so how did your entrepreneurship journey start? Then, did you go into business straight away, or were you in jobs first, or what made you take the decision to start your own business?
I guess I'm a little different. When I was 6, I asked my mother if I could get $2 a week for doing my chores, for doing dishes and taking out the trash. She told me no. That's your chores for the family. And being 6, I thought, well, my dad's in charge, so I'll go talk to my dad and he'll give me money. And his first question was, have you asked your mom? I said, yes. And she said, no. And he said, well, then the answer is no. But if you want to make some money, you can come work with a cleaning company. It was a commercial cleaning company. And he said, I'll pay you $2 an hour. I'm asking for $2 a week. So I'll pay you $2 an hour to, vacuum floors and stuff like that. And I'm like, cool. Half the time I have to go with them anyway because there's not a babysitter or whatever. So I started working at a really young age. And that wasn't really being an entrepreneur, but it did teach me to value, I guess, my time, the money I made, the things I bought with my money. While my friends were waiting for their parents to give them something for Christmas, I went out and bought it the day it came out, and when it broke, because I was stupid with it, I was very upset because it was my $100 down the drain, not my parents. So, I learned how to manage people when I was 12 and 13. I had a crew of either 3 or 5 people, depending on the night, that cleaning a college campus with my father. I don't think they liked having a 12-year-old tell them what to do, but I learned to overcome that, and that really helped me out in life because not anymore, but when I was younger, I had a baby face, and everyone thought I was younger than I was, and I learned how to work with older people. So, entrepreneur-wise, it probably started when I was in high school. I hated working at a grocery store. I worked at a laundromat. All those hours to get an $80 paycheck, back when minimum wage here in the U.S. was $4.25 an hour, didn't work for me very well. So I think my first entrepreneurial venture was to see that clubs in high school sold candy bars as fundraisers. Everybody complained that they weren't very good and they cost too much. So I went to Costco and I bought super packs of assorted Mars and Hershey products, etc. And I undercut the price of the bars, and I set up to where people could have a dollar bill and buy it from me, and I had change for them. And it sounds kind of dumb, but I managed to make $5 or $6 grand a year selling candy bars in school. So to me, it was just, hey, now I don't have to have a dumb job like all my friends do. I make more money than them. And when I want to ask somebody out on a date, I can afford to take them somewhere besides McDonald's. So I learned quickly that having some money in your pocket was a good thing too. It helped you accomplish things in life.
Okay, after high school then, did you go to university? Did you go to the normal route, or did you go straight into
Yeah, I went into school. With my parents, even though neither one of them had even gone, let alone graduated from college, they felt like all the hardships that they had in their life, all the problems that they had faced, was because they did not have the education they needed. Mm-hmm. And so for me, not going to school wasn't an option. I had a basketball scholarship to go, and I had academic scholarships to go, so money wasn't an issue either. I could go for free. So I went. Kind of like working in a job. I didn't really like going to school. I just did it because it's like my job right now. I had a few entrepreneurial things I did in college that we won't discuss, but trying to manage anything from my own barbershop, buzzing people's hairs, or all kinds of goofy stuff. But by the time I was done with school, I was done with school, and the thought of working in an office in a cubicle was not going to work for me. Mm-hmm. Probably one of the reasons why I went, and my major was in marine biology. That was because I could be out in nature, be in boats, scuba diving, traveling, more of an interesting lifestyle, even though you couldn't make a lot of money. That's kind of what I went out into. However, right at the end of school, working on research work, which is part of what I actually do today, I met my wife, and you get married, and you want to buy a house, you want to have cars, and you want to have kids. And then as a marine biologist, you're going to make $16,000, $18,000 a year. You're not going to have any of those things. So that's what got me to realize I need to go do something like I've done, but on a bigger scale. And so that's how I kind of got out of science and went into real estate. Started to do the things that I did for the next decade and a half.
Okay, and what were some of those things? So how did you start in that business, and how did you grow? And what level did you eventually get to?
Well, like in most people who go into real estate, it's usually you failed at everything else. You can't think of anything else to do, and it's only like $700 to get into it. So away you go. And for myself, I didn't think I had any sales background, or I didn't know I was going to maybe sell some stuff to family or whatever. I was just kind of hoping I could make it work. But I discovered I was good at it. I ended up being Rookie of the Year in the office that I was in. I learned some really valuable lessons from people who'd been in the business for decades about how you make money, how you can make things consistent, in what you're doing. So that helped me a lot. I changed companies a few times because I got better commission splits based on the amount of business I was doing. I went and educated myself put in the time, made sure I did things like, my average customer's age was about 67 years old in Florida, and I'm 23. And so there's a little bit of I don't know if this guy knows what he's doing probably going on. So I tried to make sure they were very impressed with me over the phone before we met in person. So the baby face didn't scare him away. But eventually, I became the #1 realtor in the office I was in. I started a team. I grew it to a group, because as you scale, you can't do everything by yourself, no matter what you're doing for a living. You have to have team members to help you. After a while, I realized, heck, I'm a big chunk of what this entire office does. Like, I should have my own office. So being as brilliant as I was at 24, I might as well open my own business. And then quickly I'm opening up another one, and I'm having someone who I've met who wants me to help them open up one in another state. And kind of like getting into real estate to begin with, I just kind of backed into owning a bunch of offices. And then the whole real estate implosion happened in the US, which in Florida started in 2006, like kind of earlier than other places. And at first my hair was on fire like everybody else. I've gone from being a $100 to $150 million producer to I'm not sure if I can sell $10 million this year if no one's buying anything, no matter what it's priced at. And I was sitting, at the time, I needed $70,000 a month to pay all my bills. I was young. I'd been stupid. You get a big house and big cars and big everything. And I see people making that mistake online right now who are active on Facebook. Or when the economy isn't as friendly as it is now, they're going to learn some painful lessons like I did. But I knew giving up is not an option. I had all these kids at home and a wife depending on me who'd given up her career to raise our family, and so you have to get something done. And I saw a quote from Warren Buffett, and he was talking about wherever there's the most problems in the economy, wherever the fire is the biggest when things are going wrong, that's where he goes. That's where you make money. Mm-hmm. And at the time in real estate, I realized everything was on fire, including my hair. Everybody else had the exact same problem I did, or worse. And I realized that I could buy real estate companies for as little as $1,000 that used to be worth millions 12 months ago. Okay. I realized that people were losing everything. They were going bankrupt no matter what. Mm-hmm. And I also realized, looking at my companies, that I'm looking at a closing statement, and if for anybody who's ever purchased a home, you see all the different people who make money in a real estate transaction. And if you're in real estate for a living like I was, of all the other companies who make money after the transaction, all the needs, especially with investors. I realized that I was only getting like 18% of the money coming out of all the work that my agents and myself, are putting together. So I realized I needed to own a title company. I needed to have a mortgage company and a property management company and a commercial division and all these things. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't so much that you're sitting here trying to do like 10 things at once. You're just simply trying to manage other parts of the business that you're already conducting. So I realized if I could get a hold of real estate offices real inexpensively, they were kind of the central hub that you needed to build a circle of companies and multiple income streams around. And I took Warren Buffett's advice, and I went out and I started buying. Took the last money I had left. We were doing asset purchases. So we're just, in some cases, buying the cash in the bank, and that was about it from a company. And I had planned on buying a few, correcting my own personal income issue. I brought on partners who could bring in other services that either I couldn't do or legally couldn't do because of different licensing laws, et cetera. Made mistakes with some of the partners I brought in. Had to get out of business with those partners. Sometimes I was extremely expensive. I completely created what I did, but had to undo it all the first year I was doing it. And it cost me millions of dollars basically in income because I was in business with the wrong people. Right. I'd been too rash, too hasty, rushing into it to trying to get money, to pay my bills and fix my problems. And I just didn't have enough knowledge about credit score gets dinged up. It's not that big of a deal. You can fix it in 18 months, 24 months. Like, worry about what you need to actually worry about. But once I got things right, I was working with the right people. We just kind of went around and just kind of were able to, we had a repeatable model. We just repeated it and repeated it and repeated it. And we went to all of the states that had the most real estate pain, which also happen to be the states that have the most real estate gain when things come back. And just repeated and repeated and repeated.
So that repeated model, was that just buying other businesses or buying the assets?
Yeah. What finally became the perfect model is we'd find between 2 and 4 failing real estate offices that were middle of the road. They weren't anybody important who had a value. They also weren't like a guy and his 6 friends and there's nothing there. None of them could make any money, so they were disappearing. But if you cobbled them together, it was an entity that could at least pay for itself. It didn't require cash once you combined everybody. And then we brought in our circle of companies around it, and they all generated money immediately. Because in a lot of cases, we had people in other states who could conduct the business there. The same time Amazon was creating AWS, we had virtual servers. We had our own cloud system. We could have somebody sick in California, have people in Florida, conducting business for them, and vice versa. It's the kind of thing where I was looking into actually buying franchise rights in Realogy in like Australia or in European countries, because I realized I had something that you could just kind of plug and play anywhere as long as you adapted to whatever the local rules were. Once it grew, it just kind of grew exponentially.
Before we
move just a matter of what city do I want to fly to start it again. So
before we move on to obviously the major growth, what was some of your mindset like? Some of your fears and doubts and some of the challenges when you were starting up and when you went through this phase of crash and then trying to build it back up?
Well, I guess my fear always was, hey, I'm just this little kid from Wisconsin who came from a working class family, and what do I know about big anything? I had watched family members, have financial problems. I've seen my parents have financial problems. My chihuahuas are excited right now. You always have doubt. There isn't anybody who doesn't have fear that I can't do this. That's the biggest thing that prevents anybody from even starting anything is you've got that lizard part of your brain, your fight or flight, that's trying to keep you out of trouble and trying to keep you away from disaster. And it's the first thing that comes up saying this is hard and it's not for sure. Maybe you shouldn't do this because it's safer to not to. So I always had that in my mind. I think part of the reason why I was able to move forward was maybe I was young and stupid enough to not realize how much trouble I was getting myself into. But I think the main part of it was starting to work so early in life for my family. I paid taxes when I was 8. Having a couple of goofy little businesses, to make money. I knew this was the right thing to do, and I knew I wasn't the only person with problems. And I also knew I was going to fail at things I was doing. And I think it actually helped that I already lost a bunch of money and had a bunch of stuff blow up in my face to realize, well, it's not that bad. I'm still here, I'm still breathing. The sun will come up tomorrow and I can get more accomplished tomorrow. So, mindset wise, I think whenever the fear comes in, you sit there and you say, well, I can curl up in a ball here and accomplish nothing, or I can just keep going forward because everybody else around me is eventually going to stop and I'll just literally succeed by attrition. That's how a lot of business is. The last person who quits wins, eventually you're the only one standing. So, today I still get afraid when I'm doing something new.
Okay. Okay.
I'm going to start coaching. And I'm like, well,
okay. So we are the coaching. So was it the real estate? So which business? So we in the intro we said you've got some 9, 10, and even 11-figure businesses. Were they all in real estate, or what were they?
Yeah, it was financial services. Investing money for people, mainly in real estate, but real estate company, actual buying and selling of physical property, title work, mortgage. Right? Those main entities are what all the volume went through. We had a lot of companies that did very, very well that handled all the little extra money you could make. Commercial real estate would have joined all that, but it's something I started a little later on and didn't get a whole lot of time put into it before I said enough's enough and cashed out.
Okay. And so which one was the 11-figure business, and was that the commercial real estate one, or?
No, that's a real estate company.
That's real estate. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And is that the one you sold eventually then?
I actually sold everything.
Right.
The entire Umbrella Corp was sold. It was worth more broken up. So broke the entities up into, they were easily sellable units that could be just like a single real estate office where the broker wanted to buy it or the agents wanted to get together and buy it. We sold some things that way. We sold some things like the title company that somebody just wanted to absorb it to grow their footprint. So it was a simple transaction. They didn't want everything else involved with it. They just wanted that entity.
Right.
So, one way or another, they all went either in a single fashion or in small groups. And it took about 3 years to get that all done.
Right. And how long?
It's hard to unwind all that.
How long did it take you to build the empire before you decided to sell?
14 years.
Wow. Okay. And tell us.
And I'm starting from I started in real estate in business for myself. About 7 years. Okay. 7 years from and actually starting my own company.
And what made you want to sell? So what caused the decision to sell?
Well, a few things. One was health. I was working 115 hours a week for a decade and a half. I figured out one time, I worked as many hours as if you graduated from college at the average age and retired at 62, like people do in the US. I put in, it was about 87,000 hours, something ridiculous like that, 90. When I'm on a family vacation for Christmas in Hawaii, I'm still working 70 hours that week. I'm up all night working. My wife's mad at me.
Yeah, because I was just about to ask, obviously you've got 5 children as well.
Yeah.
So how did you manage the family life and obviously working?
Well, that's the other side of why I stopped. I'm on 17-day business trips, living in airports and planes, thinking about going international. I sat back one day and realized I either had to decide, do I want my business or do I want my wife and kids and my health? I knew I couldn't hire enough people to divest myself enough. It's not that I'm bad at it. It's just my personality type, I do have to have a certain amount of control of what I'm doing, a certain amount of input. I definitely don't trust someone to replace me completely. That's probably maybe a downfall of mine, but I knew that I had to pick, what do I want in my life? And I decided I wanted to do things with my kids. I wanted to celebrate my 20th anniversary, which I did last year. I want to grow old with somebody, and I don't want to have the problems I'm seeing other people around me are having, which, people had serious health problems, serious marital problems. There are a lot of people I was in business with that I know they're no longer here, either through heart attack, stroke, at a young age, like in your 40s. They lost their marriages, their kids don't talk to them. I didn't want to be those people. Okay. So I decided, kind of at some point in your life, you got to say, when's enough enough? Do you have to have more? And I decided I wanted a much simpler life. I wanted to enjoy my days and do things I want to do, and not be chained to the company that I've created where, I'm literally, even though I'm the boss, I'm not the boss. My business is my boss. telling me where to be and when to be and how long to be there. So I decided enough's enough. Time to stop this and do something else with my life.
Okay. So obviously it took 3 years to sell all the entities. What were some of the challenges going through that phase of selling, and who were some of the buyers? Were the other companies or were the individuals? And how did you find the selling process?
Selling process was painful. A lot of false starts. When I'm doing this, it's 2011, 12, 13. It's your economic recovery is getting going, but it's still not great. Money is starting to free up, but especially in the US, you have the government is still cranking down on different rules and trying to make it hard for you to do anything. So, some businesses had to be sold several times. The deals fell through after months and months of working on it. It literally took 2 years to receive all the payments. It was biannual payments you were receiving because you were in a market where just people being flush with cash wasn't really reality like it is right now. Mm-hmm. I still have some things I'm receiving some residual payments on as part of the deal. I don't own anything anymore. I'm paid out that way, but I still get money certain days of the month until I'm paid out or they go out of business or whatever. Which I've actually had some of the entities I built that were huge. They're gone. Wow. People failed. Okay. 4 or 5 years later, they were bankrupt. And they couldn't run the thing. I'm just lucky they had the money to pay me. So, was it easy? Absolutely not. But it wasn't easy building it either, and it wasn't easy running it. And so I was under no illusion that trying to get out of it was going to be simple, because I didn't have a simple business to sell. It's complicated, and there was lots of parts of it.
Did you sell them to private buyers or other companies or people inside your own?
All three.
All three?
We had entities that were absorbed, just like again, someone to expand their footprint. Actually, probably half of it were people who worked within the company, got together, pooled their resources, and purchased it, and then took a big chunk of their annual income to finish paying it off. When I sold, I knew I was selling at a bad time as far as trying to maximize the amount of money I'm making, because due to the kinds of businesses most of them were, you don't have, it's not annual contracts, there's not reoccurring income, so multiples are hard to come by in good times, let alone bad times. So, I was doing it for personal reasons. It wasn't worth it to me to wait 5 years for the economy to be better. So, a lot of it was internal, but some of it was just private person, a retiree in Florida or Arizona that knew the business, had worked with us a lot, found out I was selling. And they came up and said, I'd like to buy this from, my son-in-law or something like that. So just kind of a private money deal with them.
Okay, brilliant. And so let's move on to some of the causes that you've obviously been a part of. Were you a part of causes in that period, or did that come after?
No, I was always involved with that during that period. Some of the companies that I bought franchises in, like Keller Williams Realty, they're always very big on food drives, things like that, trying to help the homeless or those in the poverty level. You come in contact with a lot of people, so you try to have your offices put together drives, try to help people out at holidays. I did things like Publix is a big grocery store chain in the southeastern United States, and go in there and buy all the turkeys or the bags of whatever they're being sent off to a homeless shelter. You just go pay for all of them. Okay. Try to help out however you can. I know what it was like to get those handouts at times in my life, and I know they help out a lot. So since I had some money, I tried to return that favor. And then the battered women with children charities that I try to help out. That was just because I had something in me where I have an issue with men who pick on women, because it's all they can accomplish in life, especially if they hit them. It causes a lot of anger inside of me towards that person. And so instead of going around beating people up, which you get in a lot of trouble doing, I chose to try to help, those women who wanted to get away from that situation any way I could, just so that maybe they could accomplish it.
Okay. And the non-profit, can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, that was basically me going back to what I did in college.
Okay.
I was doing research work. It was aquaculture, kind of ocean ranching work, trying to mass produce seafood. And growing up in Florida, I watched the environment steadily year after year declining as more and more people retired here because it's a popular retirement area. More pressure from humanity, always the environment suffers. So I spent a few years complaining about it. I spent actually most of my life where I lived in Florida complaining about it. It's ridiculous that they're allowing this and that. And, I'm worrying about who we should elect. And I finally realized that there's nobody doing anything that should be anyway. And I needed to shut up about talking about what a problem it was and try to do something about it. So I started Ocean Habitats, and we produce an artificial fish reef is what it is. It utilizes wasted space underneath boat docks. So it grows life, and the oysters and things like that live on it, it naturally filters the water. So they replace the coastal wetlands that were lost in the 75 years ago when coastal development took place. They were dug out and replaced by homes and seawalls. So there's something I could do that was like, again, going back to college, things that I loved, help the environment. So I could tell myself, I've shut up and I'm doing something now. And that's something that working very, very hard on growing as large as I can.
Okay, so how is that being funded? So in terms of the finance side, how are you funding that? And then how are you able to do all the amazing things that you're doing?
Well, to start with, the funding was basically the profit margin of the device that we're selling. Just putting the money back into the company to grow it. We're nonprofit. It's not that hard to not have any money at the end of the year because there's a million and one things that need to be spent on. As we've grown, we have started getting to the phase where we're taking donations from individuals and end of the year taxes, that type of thing to help accelerate our growth. And now this year, I've gone ahead and started a for-profit subsidiary that it owns to have a real company selling a product. And then the profits go back to the nonprofit for additional work. We have other products that we're working on, testing to bring out, et cetera. So self-funding is how it started. Self-funding is still about 95% of it. I'm a firm believer in if you're growing a business and it can't generate any kind of cash flow, to be able to sustain itself, you're in the wrong business, or you're not very good at running it. Your business plan is not very good. There's a problem. You shouldn't be in a business where there's just no money involved and you don't know how you're going to make this happen. It's not easy. It's also not that hard.
Okay, and so, we talked about your mission a little bit, but can you expand on your mission? What is it that you're trying to accomplish, and what is your vision for this nonprofit?
Well, our coastal waters here, coastal fisheries, the percentage decline they've had in the last 100 years basically is literally like 90% in a lot of cases. As far as the people being dependent upon it for food and income in the United States, it's not as big of a deal, but in large parts of the world, that's where you get money from. And that's where you get food from, is the ocean. And if that's all dying and going away, what are you going to do? What are your children and grandchildren going to do? It's an extremely serious problem. So, our mission is to help bring coastal waters to life. It's sad that there are coastal waters that aren't alive. They used to be when I was born. Fisheries have collapsed. People who were fishermen for a living, they're doing something else now. We're trying to take all these man-made areas, of which there are plenty of, and bring them to life, make them productive. You're not going to get rid of all of the homes that are built. They're here to stay. You're not going to tell people leave. You're not going to get rid of the businesses that are waterfront. But you can you can make them productive again, those areas. That's what we're doing. Other people are planting mangroves, other people are restoring areas that have been damaged, and I let them go do their job, and we get underneath docks and make them productive. That's our partial solution to the problems that we have. And we have 4,000 units in the water now, and the goal is to have 100,000 units in the water. So I'm just getting going. It's still in the baby steps, but we're going to get there.
Brilliant. And I think you touched upon it before, that you still have fears and doubts. What are those fears and doubts now, and how do you overcome them?
Well, like with this, it's, I don't have any competition with what I do like I did in business before, but I had to deal with government regulators. And like right now, I have people in Western Australia that are interested in bringing what we're doing there. So now it's a whole nother set of rules to learn and follow. And so you have doubts of, can I keep doing this? Can I succeed? Am I going to fail when people in Europe say they want to do blank? Because it's a whole different party I'm joining now. Mm-hmm. Again, I have to like go back to my past and say, yeah, well, there will be problems, there will be failures, and we will find places where we don't get to work because it just doesn't work out. That's life, especially in business. Not everything works out. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, I just try to be practical about, I have to keep moving forward in some forward direction, and it's going to work out eventually, even if it's not the plan I thought it was going to be to make it work out. Mm-hmm. I'm going to find a solution. I'm going to find several solutions. They're out there. I just have to come across them if I don't know them already. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now you're starting have you started already the coaching business, or tell us a little bit about?
No, I'm actually, I think on your show here, I'll say, hey, I have decided after 2 years of him-hawing around about it, a few times that I'm going to start on blank date, but then I get busy with my nonprofit or it's somebody's birthday or whatever, and I put it off and put it off. Here I'm procrastinating, just like I tell people, you got to get started. You can't sit, you can't do anything if you're doing nothing. So I'm just starting today.
Okay, so what is your plan, or what's your aim? Who do you want to coach, and why do you want to do it, and what do you want them to achieve?
I want to help people. I actually don't care if they're just starting out or if they have something sizable that they're trying to take to another level. Those are obviously two different kinds of people, but they have the same issue of they need to grow from one size to another. I've grown from just starting to about as big as you can think of getting, and I've done it multiple times. So I'm looking to help people avoid the mistakes I made, avoid the expensive mistakes I made. There's a lot of that. Help people, I guess, manage the fear, the stress, maybe make some important decisions early on about how big they're going to get, try to avoid some of the pitfalls that are out there that you get into pretty quickly. As in business, you make money if you're really, really tiny or if you're gigantic, and everywhere in between, you're in some phase of going out of business if you're not transitioning to something larger. And I just wanted to help smooth that road out for people. Not everybody needs an 11-figure company. In fact, I would advise don't do that. It's not a lot of fun.
Why would you not advise people to go for an 11-figure company?
Well, for anybody who's done disc testing, everybody has different personality types. They have different strengths and weaknesses. And I am a firm believer in it takes a certain mentality, a certain kind of person to grow something that size. You have to deal with thousands of people. That's not you and some VAs and like one good assistant. You're going to have hundreds of employees, and you're going to have thousands of subcontractors. You might have tens of thousands of vendors that you're working with to accomplish something like that. It's a lot of organization. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of balls to keep in the air, and it's not for everyone.
How did you time manage that? That sounds like a lot. So how did you manage to deal with all of that?
Well, that was my problem. I worked 20 hours a day. My business was everything. It was all consuming. You have to have really good people with you too, and for them, it has to be all consuming. You're literally asking other people to be just like you, to have no weekends and no holidays and no anything, and just grind and grind and grind to like get yourself to the end goal you're trying to achieve. So that's why I would advise a lot of people don't go down that road. You only need so much money to live a very comfortable life. You don't have to own a $650 million yacht. You don't need to be in the Fortune 10. Some people go and do that, and it's what they love, I guess. At least they stay there doing it. So I'm assuming they like it, some portion of it. But you can accomplish a lot of things you want to accomplish in life and have a very secure life and help your children and grandchildren and all that at a much lower level.
So a lot of people are trying to get to 7-figure company level.
Right.
What kind of commitment is needed in terms of hours worked, days, holiday, what we just discussed, to get to a 7-figure, maybe an 8-figure level?
I mean, again, you're going to have staff. You're going to have people that you can delegate to, that you can trust, that you've trained. To get to that level, you have to let go a certain amount of your micromanagement, of your, only I can do blank. Really, the more you involve in your company, the smaller it is. I talked about earlier that, maybe I should have delegated a little bit more. I could have been better with my time management. But the reality is I had, 300 employees and 1,000 subcontractors that they're all looking at me. And even though I put people between them and me, they're still looking at me because they've been there since the beginning. And they're like, well, Dave probably has a better answer than you do, so I'll go over your head. And, but to get to 7 figures, you have to be able to delegate. You can't, you might be able to like hit a trend, have a lucky 9-month streak of you're in the right business at the right time, and boom, a lot of money comes in, and you see those people online, they're suddenly selling a class and a book and everything else about how to do it. But by the time they're selling you that, it's gone, it's over. It's already happened. So in business, there's no luck, and there's no golden ticket to get into the chocolate factory. It's just a lot of work. And so 7-figure, you're gonna have a good team, and you are gonna spend 50 or 60 hours a week at whatever you're doing. I don't care what it is. It's reality.
Okay, so this brings me on to my next point, because these days you see a lot of it where people are saying, don't waste your money or time going to college. Don't waste your time going into employment. Start your own business. What would you advise those kind of people that are thinking about whether to go to college or not, or thinking about whether to go to employment or start their own business at the very early stage?
Well, I have an almost 19-year-old son and one that's turning 18 later this year. So the advice I gave them, because neither one of them likes school, and that they don't want to be doctors or lawyers or anything where you have to go have a degree or it's not going to happen. I advise them to start their own business, to work online. I mean, right now they work at my nonprofit.
Okay.
That's way better than the grocery store, they tell me. I don't know if they feel that way when it's 97 degrees outside and we're sweating away. But my advice is, I think it depends on what you want to be. My oldest daughter wanted to be an astrophysicist, and she went to college and she got a PhD, and that's what you have to do to go be that. If you're like, I don't know what I want to be in life, I definitely would not say go to college, because, when I went to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Just had to go. And I went, and I spent 4 years there. And when I got out, I'm not going to sit here and say I never used my education, because I have. I was a marine biologist. I went to school for. It's what my nonprofit is. So I use it in a way. The business side of it, however, I learned in business, making mistakes. So if I'm just getting out of high school right now, or I'm in college and I hate it there, I would definitely go look, especially with our online world today. It's so cheap and fast to start something. You might not make a ton of money right away, but compared to when I started a business where I needed to buy a franchise, which was $50,000, and I needed $250,000 in the bank for them to sell me the franchise, and you had to hire employees and like all this stuff I went to do. Today it's, you need a Facebook account and the phone that you already have anyway, and away you go. Like I got a whole bunch of equipment here it's failing me right now because I don't have it all set up. I'm on my phone. You know, it's leaning against my computer screen to talk to you. It's occasionally going cockeyed a little bit. I have to move it back up, but you know, you make it work. I think you do have to have it inside of yourself, though. If you're going to go into business for yourself that way, you have to say, I'm going to put in the time. I'm going to get up in the morning and make this happen. I'm going to learn, but even more important than learning, I'm going to implement and start doing. You're not going to get anywhere that you want to be at any level if you don't take action. You hear that all the time online. You have to take action. You have to start. You got to launch.
Yeah.
No matter how much you plan, it's going to fall apart at some point. You're going to have to fix it. So might as well just get started.
So those who are fearful about getting started, or they've got doubts, or they've got something blocking them, what advice would you give them to get over that and really get moving?
No matter what, you have to find a way to handle your own fear. And one thing I was told, like realtors and brokers, when I would give little mini seminars or whatever to people who worked for me, et cetera, I'd always tell them the story. I'd learned this from Carlton Sheets, who was the no money down guy in the 1980 infomercial world from buying real estate. He put out some numbers. I actually looked them up and they were pretty accurate. I'm sure they're still pretty accurate today. No matter what it is that you want to do, number one, 60 to 70% of the people who have the exact same idea as you are so afraid that they're never even going to start. They're going to bow out before the process even begins. So if you just start, you're already ahead of at least 2/3 of the people that you're being in competition with. Once you've started in the first year, 2/3 of those people are going to go away as well. They're going to fail. So if you persevere through what you're doing and you grow and you learn, now you're already ahead of something like 90% of the people out there. You're already in the top 10% of those who are trying to do what you say you're going to do. If you can get to year 3, you're in the top like 3%, 2%. Get to year 5 or 7, you're in the top 1%. You can't get there if you don't start, period. And you might fail. I've started some businesses that I shut down. It just didn't work. Wrong timing. I didn't have enough experience. Made mistakes, whatever. Everybody fails. You can't be afraid. You don't want to be 65 years old one day and say, I wish I would have. Even at that stage, it's not too late. Lots of people start businesses when they're retiring and do amazing things, the last portion of their life. But if you're 20, 25, you have tons of time ahead of you. Yeah, it's just time to go. Start. Know that you will not get to where you ultimately want to be in 6 months. It's not going to happen. So be realistic. You see a lot of people online, who say you're just going to have to, eat dirt for 5 years or 7 years. And that might be true, because really, if you're going to grow something large and very successful, you're not going to be able to take very much money out of it those first 3 to 5 years. That money is going to have to go back in that business to grow it. And if you're prepared to put that kind of time in, which it's kind of like just going to college, basically, a little bit longer, you can have something built on the other side that does become, you can have 6 weeks off during the year, and you can have a nice car and a nice house, and you can be financially secure when the economy is having problems or when everyone's losing their mind over a virus or whatever. You can, your day can be the same every day. You dictate what it is you're going to be doing. So people just have to get out there and start, even if you're afraid. Everybody else is afraid too. If you started, well, you're ahead of almost everybody already anyway. So at that point, the rest is easy. You're almost going downhill.
Okay, so just talk to us about your why then. So what was your why when you first started? Was it the same throughout? Has it ever changed? And what's the why now?
Well, the why when I first got into business was definitely I wanted to build a life for my wife and myself. I had kind of gotten I'd traveled a lot during college, so I'd gotten some of the fun things I wanted to do out of the way, I guess. But it's the same now. It's like I have kids to take care of. I'll have grandkids to take care of at some point. I I want to help them have a better life than I did. Maybe at least avoid some of the mistakes I've made, be a better person than I am. So for me, it's family. It's taking care of people who are depending on me. And that'll probably never change. I don't really need anything. I can wear the same shirt every day for 10 years until it falls off my back. I don't care about fashion. I don't care about cars. I've had expensive cars. I've had giant houses. My retirement, we'll call it. I bought a 105-year-old home here in Florida. I think it's beautiful. It doesn't have air. I'm planting an orchard, and I'm putting in a garden, and I own chickens and pigs. And like, people who've known me for a long time are probably like, what the hell happened to Dave? He's nuts. But I want to have beehives and cook bread, and that's like my thing. Everybody else has their own thing. But number one, I want to help out those people important to me as much as I can. I don't need it.
Okay. And obviously these days we've got a lot of people, especially in the millennial generation, that they want to focus more on making an impact than making money. Can they do both, or do they have to make a choice between money and impact?
I think you can do both. I'm a firm believer, if you're doing something that's important to you, something that you love, you're going to become very good at that because you do love it. And money always follows something you become good at, no matter what it is. I mean, look, I'm building plastic fish reefs that are going into the water. So I'm putting plastic in the ocean. I'm working in dirty canal systems where people get flesh-eating bacteria, and all kinds of bad things can technically happen. There's occasionally sharks and alligators in the same canal, and on and on. It's a 7-figure company, and it's going to be an 8-figure company next year. I'm very passionate about what we're doing. I will run over anybody who's in the way of making this happen. Like this, I know you had a post, something last Friday you talked about, the whole attitude and gratitude kind of thing. And you do need to be positive, because you'll miss opportunities and stuff if you're negative. However, in business, the reality is you're going to have to run over somebody at some point to make it happen. You're going to have to outcompete somebody to get the dollars that are very limited for something. You're going to have to just be better, faster, stronger than everybody else. That's business. So for younger people who they want to make an impact, something they're doing, I think you can totally do that. And down the road, it will turn into money. And the more money that turns into, the more of an impact you can now make. You can stop asking for handouts from grants or whatever source of money you're relying on to make this impact, and you can do it yourself.
Yeah. So today it's not just about making money and donating, when you can do so much more to make an impact with your business.
Right.
As you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I was younger, I donated, but it's a little different world for sure. I get a lot more done, doing it myself now, running it myself, making sure it's directed the way I want it to be directed. It's a much faster, further reaching impact than just writing a check somewhere. Obviously, those checks help. There's a lot of great organizations that do a lot of great work. There's also a lot of organizations that just have a lot of people getting a paycheck, and that's kind of all you're sending your money to. So might be better off to make your own impact that way.
Okay, brilliant. Just before we wrap things up, so you started your coaching business. So have you got a structure ready? How are you going to deliver this? Is it an 8-week program? Tell us a little bit more about what you're planning to do.
I'm actually going to be starting out with just one-on-one. We're looking for people who want to scale. The price structure, that's going to depend on how much of my time that they need. In the old days, people paid me $50,000 for a year's worth of coaching, and they got an hour of my month is all they got out of me. I turned 52 people into millionaires doing that.
Wow.
The people who didn't succeed didn't implement anything. They just sat and chatted and thought about it. I'm not looking probably for a $50,000 coaching program. But I am going to start with one-on-one, and obviously there's only so much of me, so that would be very limited. I definitely will come out with a group coaching situation where you can get on group calls, like a monthly fee, so you can get questions answered, you can hear from other people, hear the successes, etc.
And is it
That's
for
down the
any
road a
business?
little bit.
Is it for any businesses, or are you focusing on a specific niche, or who
For
should
me,
come
it
to your
actually
business?
is going
Who
to
should
be
come to
any
your business?
business.
Any
It
business.
is going to be any business. I've helped people create, private label bottling companies. I've helped people buy gas stations. A P&L is a P&L to me. They're all the same. They have slightly different percentages depending on what kind of business you're in. Obviously, if someone's in real estate, I have a wealth of knowledge and how to do various aspects of that industry. If you're in the nonprofit world, I can definitely teach you how to go from $30,000 in income to millions. So you can accomplish something with what you're doing. I'm sure there are some areas where I should niche down to and concentrate on. But in my life, I have never gone and done what everyone says this is what you should do to be successful at blank. I have found that there's a formula that works for me.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes maybe I'm the only person that works for. I don't know. But like I can tell you right now, if I was coaching somebody, I would recommend them not to start 7 different companies at the same time. But I've done idiotic things like that because I understood they were interrelated, and to me, it really wasn't a bunch of different companies. But I have no problem juggling a million things at once. Most people do, so I would advise against that. But right now I am just looking for people who are trying to scale something they're doing, because especially if you have something established, scaling is there's not a computer program that's going to do it for you. There's not like one hire that's going to make it happen, or a company you can have come in and take care of part of this problem for you. There's a formula to growing a business large, or at least larger than where you are. And you have to keep changing as you go through different levels. What works at $10 million does not work at $50 million. It does not work at $100 million. What you do at $100 million doesn't work at $1 million. Like it'd be a disaster. And I'd like to help people through that process of, how big can you get if you really want to go somewhere?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And how can people get in touch with you? Where can they get more information about what you've got going on?
Right now, I'm keeping it very simple. You can message me on Facebook, or you can email me, david@davidjwolff.com.
Okay.
There is no website. There is no funnel. You don't have to talk to my ManyChat bot forever and give up all your personal information to speak with me.
Mm-hmm.
It's simply scheduling an appointment to say, hey, I want to talk for 15 minutes about what I'm doing, to see if we're a good fit, see if the finances are a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely a case-by-case basis with me, with how much time is involved with what I would charge to help somebody out.
Okay. So it obviously depends on where they're at with their current business and what they want from you.
Right.
So it's literally worth speaking to you personally, one-on-one, and then you're going to tailor make a package for them.
Yeah. If you're just starting, you haven't done anything, I'll talk to you. 18 times I just started something, and I've never done this before, and I had to go figure it out. I understand where you are. And I understand you don't have $50,000 to pay for some, guru to take you to the moon. But I also know that it might be you pay for an hour and a half of time that gives you the advice you need to go from, I hope I can do this, I'm afraid to start, to a year later, you have a business that you paid yourself $50,000 out of. I know I had conversations like that early on in my career, of people just giving you one little nugget of advice that you really needed. And it made all the world of difference. Saved you a lot of money. So money's time, and time is money. So I hope I can help people save both of those.
Brilliant. Is any last words, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, I'd like to thank you again for having me come on. I appreciate it. And, again, to all the people who watch, your show here, if you're afraid to start. If you start and you're failing, get some help, go in a different direction and start succeeding. If you're succeeding and want to succeed at a higher level, then it's time to start. There's nothing keeping anybody away from what they want to be someday other than themselves. There's actually nothing outside of you. If you have no money, it doesn't matter. No credit, doesn't matter. You can't read, doesn't really matter anymore with the phone. there's no limiting factors other than what's going on inside your head here. And you alone can fix that, and you can accomplish anything. So like, go do it.
Brilliant. Love it. So once again, thank you for coming on. It's been very entertaining, and I got a lot of value out of that interview myself. So I'm sure people watching are gonna get a lot of value out of it. So yeah, again, thank you, and everyone else, take care, and I'll see you on the next episode. Bye bye.